February 24, 1945. Iwo Jima Airfield No. 1. 0600 hours. Before the sun fully cleared the sulfur haze above Mount Suribachi, a Caterpillar D7 rolled into position at the edge of a shattered runway. The operator, a Navy Seabee, a construction tradesman who'd signed up to build, not fight, sat exposed in an open cab, no armor plating, no glass. No protection beyond the steel frame surrounding him. Beneath his tracks, volcanic black sand, shell craters, and unexploded Japanese ordnance embedded in the ground like buried landmines still waiting to do their job. Mortar rounds were still dropping on the north end of the island. Snipers were still active, and this man's assignment was to clear, grade, and compact a runway, long enough and smooth enough for damaged American bombers to land on. Bombers flying 800 miles from Japan on shot-out engines with wounded men aboard running on fumes. His blade couldn't wait for the island to be declared safe. The island wouldn't be declared safe for another 3 weeks, so he pushed forward anyway. This is the story of the Seabee Bulldozer operators who built a runway in the middle of a battle and saved thousands of lives doing it. If you want to see how these men accomplished the impossible, one blade width at a time, West on an island still actively trying to kill them, please hit that like button. See that subscribe button? It's our exchange, your way of saying this reached me. Not about the action size, but its meaning. Hit it if this resonated, drop a like if it moved you, and comment your thoughts on this story. And if you're the kind of viewer who wants to feel the tension even deeper, the exact second the recovery cable tightens, the moment steel starts to flex under load, the first inch of movement after hours of failure, the full uncut recovery sequence, join the membership. That's where we release extended 20-plus minute breakdowns, raw operational footage, the most intense recovery moments, and detailed machine analysis that doesn't make it into the public edit. Let's complete this circle together. Now back to the story. But to understand how this happened, we have to go back. By early 1945, American B-29 superfortresses were flying from the Mariana Islands, Tinian, Saipan, Guam, on 1,800-mile round-trip bombing raids over Japan. The distances were brutal, the missions were long, and when planes came back damaged, there was nothing between Japan and the Marianas. No emergency strip, no safe harbor. If an engine quit over open ocean, the crew was gone. Iwo Jima changed that equation, if it could be taken. As this 8-square-mile volcanic rock halfway between Tokyo and the Marianas hosted 3 Japanese airfields. Enemy fighter planes launched from those strips to intercept American bombers. Intelligence estimated the island would fall in 1 week. They were wrong by 3. The assault on Iwo Jima was designated Operation Detachment. On February 19, 1945, approximately 60,000 U.S. Marines from the 3rd, 4th, and 5th Marine Divisions hit the beaches, and landing in the second wave within 60 minutes of the 1st Marines were the Seabees. 3 Naval Construction Battalions were assigned to the operation: the 133rd NCB, the 31st NCB, and the 62nd NCB. Their collective mission, stated simply, was to fix the airfields as fast as possible. Nothing about that mission was simple. The first problem was the beach itself. Iwo Jima's shoreline is composed of black volcanic sand. Not the compacted kind, but loose, shifting, flour-like ash that swallows vehicle tracks whole. Wheeled trucks sank to their axles within feet of the waterline. Even some of the powerful bulldozers initially spun out, unable to gain traction. Men who tried to run described it like trying to sprint through wet concrete that kept collapsing underfoot. The Seabees responded the only way they knew how. They unloaded steel matting, pierced steel planking directly onto the volcanic sand, creating a surface stable enough for medium tanks to cross. That was the work of the first hours. Not airfield construction, not road grading, but simply making the beach survivable for the equipment that had to get ashore. The Cat D7s were invaluable from the moment their tracks hit sand. Weighing over 12 tons, unpowered by Caterpillar's 4-cylinder D8800 engine producing around 80 horsepower, these machines were classified by the U.S. military as the heavy tractor M1. Their Lee-Tourneau cable-operated blade systems allowed operators to raise and lower the steel blade from the seat. Critical when every second of exposed operation meant potential sniper contact, the Seabees used those D7s to bulldoze debris, cut access roads up the 30-degree volcanic slopes from the beach, and build supply routes under fire. Because only a handful of trucks could get ashore in the first 2 days, the bulldozers essentially became the logistics chain, pushing supplies inland, clearing paths for ammunition carriers, opening ground. Airfield No. 1, the Japanese-built strip nearest the beach in Mount Suribachi, was a wreck. So naval and aerial bombardment before the assault had cratered the runway systematically. What had once been a functional airstrip was now a field of overlapping shell holes, fractured coral base, scattered wreckage, and buried ordnance. On D+5, February 24th, Seabee heavy equipment operators from the 133rd NCB formally took over airfield repair. The Marines had pushed inland, but inland on Iwo Jima was relative, as combat was still raging less than a mile away. Mortar rounds arced overhead, snipers targeted anything that moved above ground level, and a bulldozer operator sitting exposed in an open cab 10 feet in the air was exactly the kind of target a hidden rifleman could track across a stretch of open ground. The operators worked anyway. The Cat D7s pushed rubble from the bomb craters to the crater lips, packing fill material into the holes. It was rough, grinding work. The volcanic soil compacted poorly, requiring multiple passes, and the vibration of nearby explosions would sometimes re-crack freshly packed sections. Other equipment, scrapers, graders, compactors, worked in sequence, but the bulldozers led every push. And then there was the ordnance. Unexploded Japanese artillery shells, mortar rounds, and aerial bombs were embedded throughout the airfield surface and subsurface. Well, some had been there since the pre-invasion bombardment. Others were more recent. The Seabees couldn't wait for full disposal. They couldn't always stop for it. In documented accounts from the battle, bulldozer operators physically pushed live shells off the runway with their blades, inching up to unexploded ordnance, engaging it with the blade's edge and rolling it to the side of the strip. One mistake in blade angle, one fuse contact detonation, and there would be nothing left to report. Some of those operators were hit by mortar shrapnel mid-operation and kept working until they physically couldn't. The 133rd NCB ultimately sustained a 43% casualty rate, the highest suffered by any Seabee battalion in the history of World War II. They didn't leave the equipment idle. On March 4, 1945, 13 days after D-Day, while fighting on the island was still intense, a damaged B-29 Superfortress made an emergency landing at Iwo Jima's Airfield No. 1. The plane had lost engine power over Japan. The crew had nowhere else to go. The runway that received that aircraft had been repaired, graded, and compacted largely by Seabee Cat D7s under fire in under 2 weeks. The 22 men aboard survived because of that runway. Just imagine the weight of that moment from the operator's seat, not knowing in real time that the hours of grinding volcanic ash under 12 tons of steel had built the floor that kept those men alive. That single landing was a proof of concept. Within weeks, the flow of emergency landings accelerated. By the end of the war, more than 2,400 B-29s made emergency landings at Iwo Jima. If each aircraft carried an average crew of 11 men, the mathematics of that runway are staggering. Over 24,000 aircrew members, who might otherwise have gone down over the Pacific, walked off those planes and lived. We talk about machines. We have to talk about the men. The average Seabee was 37 years old. These weren't teenagers fresh out of school. They were experienced tradesmen, iron workers, concrete finishers, heavy equipment operators who had spent careers learning exactly how machines behaved under load. They knew what an overstressed track sounded like. They knew what a blade could take before the push arms bent. They understood angles and soil and resistance in ways that a manual couldn't teach. They were classified as naval personnel, which meant that under the Geneva Convention, enemy forces were technically obligated to treat them as prisoners of war rather than combatants if captured. Technically being the operative word on Iwo Jima. Japanese forces did not observe that distinction, yet those operators climbed into open cabs, Some later reinforced with improvised steel plating, but many without even that, and ran Cat D7s across ground that was still being contested toward a finish line that kept moving. Their names are mostly not in the history books. The accounts that survive are fragments, first-person narratives collected decades later. A unit diaries, official after-action reports that describe hours of work in bureaucratic shorthand. But the outcome of their labor is quantifiable. It is measurable in thousands of men who came home. The airfields of Iwo Jima were declared fully operational in stages through April and May of 1945. By the war's end, the island hosted P-51 Mustang fighter squadrons that escorted B-29s to Japan and back, reducing bomber losses significantly. The strategic logic of taking Iwo Jima, the terrible cost of taking it, was borne out in those numbers, imperfect as the accounting always is. The 133rd NCB after Iwo Jima was cited for exceptional performance. The citation is real. The casualty rate that preceded it is real. And the Cat D7s, those 12-ton cable-blade crawlers with their open cabs and four-cylinder diesel engines, are part of that story whether they appear in the citation or not. Modern Caterpillar D-series dozers descended from that same lineage. Today's D7 produces over 200 horsepower, weighs over 30 tons, and operates with GPS-guided blade control systems that an Iwo Jima operator would consider science fiction. But the principle is unchanged. You engage the blade, you push, you hold the line. On Iwo Jima in 1945, holding the line meant keeping the machine moving across a runway still littered with the wreckage of battle, and trusting that the work you were doing mattered to men you would never meet, flying back from targets you would never see. It mattered. The runway proved it. The 2,400 landings proved it. The Bulldozer, unarmored, slow, and magnificent, proved it. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve these machines and the histories behind them. And if you want the full tension, the extended recovery cuts, the raw mechanical stress moments, and the unseen breakdown analysis, the membership is waiting for you. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Under this video, you'll see a thanks button, a small gesture with a big meaning. By pressing it, you're not only supporting the creation of more content like this, but you're also becoming part of the very exchange we've been talking about, giving and receiving in harmony. It's not about the size of the gesture, it's about the meaning. A simple super thanks tells me these words reached you. It tells me that the effort, the late nights, and the discipline to bring this message forward mattered to someone on the other side of the screen.